standing here this afternoon to back in the salmon industry, found about 10 minutes in his heart to speak from his heart about the most incredible industry that employs amazing individuals, that supports small businesses and large industry right across Tasmania. This is the government's time to shine. And actually what I believe is this government only do it under pressure. They only do it when they're told to do it. They only do it when they know that if they don't, someone will come out and smash them about the fact that they pretend that they support this industry. The minister, when she makes decisions, goes out and stands up, makes a decision, never puts it on a social media. Now, this government loves social media. They're out there telling people all the time all the great things they do, but they are actually not supporters of this industry and publicly don't want to be aligned with the industry. Come in here, put a motion on the book, stand up and profess that they support it, and can't even bring out 10 minutes. I mean, Australia's most valuable seafood industry, Tasmania's most valuable primary industry, can't find 10 minutes. You talk about not making hasty decisions, that you don't want to shut the industry down. Well, before I get into being perhaps, along with my colleagues from Tasmanian Labor, the strongest supporters of the salmon industry in Tasmania, let me just spend a moment uncharacteristically reflecting negatively on this government and what they've done to seek to shut down this industry and to make hasty decisions that create all sorts of uncertainty and a lack of trust from industry in this government. One of the very first things that happened in this place when I arrived, a government that purported to support this industry, overnight, without consultation, placed a moratorium on an industry that they love and believe in. How on earth can you send a signal to an industry without consultation, and I note the former ministers come into the chamber, and take by surprise an industry that supports the most important people in Tasmania, people in rural and regional Tasmania, people in communities on our coastal towns, in our rural and regional towns that are, as the government like to say, but do they believe it, the lifeblood of these communities. You go into some of these communities and you see high-vis all the way down the streets, in the local takeaway stores, in the local hardware stores, taking their kids to the local sport, to footy, to whatever it is, because they are so important. But overnight you believe that you can demonstrate your support to this industry by effectively shutting them down and creating a void in the community that can allow the activists to rise, to allow the negative conversation to grow, because you're not backing them in and you're not actually doing what you believe that you say you do and backing this industry in. So not only did you apply a moratorium overnight, but then you've just applied a salmon tax. This is, if you believe this industry actually truly, as we do, I don't want any of this on the record that I'm reflecting on the government to believe that it's the language of Tasmanian Labor on the salmon industry, but if you believe this industry had the capacity for great growth, great contribution, for private investment funds into our regional communities, then why would you tax them? Why would you ask this industry to pay? Let me describe how it's been described to me what this salmon tax is. Salmon industry in Tasmania believe and want to play their reasonable amount of investment into the Tasmanian economy to continue to do what they do to provide opportunity. But the way you go about it is what actually impacts and frustrates industry. So a full cost recovery salmon tax looks like this to industry. Will I pick up the phone today to speak to the department or speak to the minister and ask a question about something or have a conversation about a great investment that I'd like to make? Will I actually take the time to do that and risk doing that, because actually I'm going to be on the clock like in a lawyer's office and I'll have to pay for that phone call? Do I send an email in to the department to have an exchange, a positive exchange, build a relationship, have a partnership with government to undertake a conversation or something, or not, because actually they'll charge me for that email? That is the level of degree of mistrust and undermining that this government have for the salmon industry in Tasmania, that does nothing to say to the rest of Tasmania, to the country and to the world, we love and believe in this industry because it does so much. It is in fact one of our greatest success stories. And not just the people that work in the industry, not the people that we see all day, every day in their high-vis in our regional communities, but the hard-working people on the water, the hard-working people in our communities, the incredible people that have created innovation here in Tasmania that is used all across the world because of the clever, creative, curious and committed, passionate people here that have created, whether it be computer tech, for the way that they can feed fish all around Tasmania from buildings in Hobart, that tech has now been picked up and used in other places across Australia and across the world, or whether it be the construction tech, a way that they keep their workers safe on the water, whether it be from the environment and the big seas, or whether it be from the wildlife, that they actually all day, every day say, we're great at what we do. We make a great contribution to this state, and we want to continue to demonstrate to the world that we can continue to see improvement to make it bigger and better. And having that opinion and that level of support and passion for this industry is how you show support. That's how you ensure it doesn't get shut down. That's how you ensure that there are no surprises. Because this morning we talked about trust. The way you develop trust with community members, with workers, with leaders of business is by having relationships and conversations, seeking to understand, seeking to actually see how can you get out of the way, or how can you actually create a partnership that can support the ongoing innovation investment to support Tasmanians. Because private capital investment in this state is what actually creates jobs. It's what actually supports the economy, not a government that stands up and says, aren't these statistics amazing, when actually the statistics they talk about, whether it be jobs or economy, are done by private individuals in private business. I mean, most of the time, as small business minister or as primary industries, I'm not the minister yet, sorry, let me correct the record. Most of the time, as the shadow minister for small business or the shadow minister for primary industries, I hear people talking about how we can continue to create a really positive environment of Tasmania, but we learn how to get out of the way when it's not useful, or we learn how to actually stand up and be positive when it's necessary. And one of the things that this industry needs right now is a government that understands the capacity and the potential and knows when to back it in. So we know that the decisions of this government have caused for industry leaders to lack confidence and certainty. Yeah. They question the investments they are making and are primed to make significant investments in Tasmania, but are unsure and uncertain whether they should because of the lack of trust with this government. And when you see government decisions, and we've got the former minister and we've got the environment minister here, when you see decisions coming out of and I love it how the salmon plan, it's a bit like the winter billbuster couldn't be called the winter billbuster because it was delivered in summer. Well, the salmon plan couldn't be called the salmon plan in the end. It became an industry plan because actually the reality of it wasn't about a plan or a vision or a big, blue sky thinking about what's possible and how you could partner together. It was about constraining industry. It became an industry plan. It became a 10-year industry plan when actually if you understood the industry you'd know they'd already made their decisions for the next 10 years. They're already at the point where they know what they're doing now. What this industry needs is vision and support for the next 20, 30, 40, 50 years. Where was it? What time was it where the capacity of this government lost the willingness or the desire or the passion or the capacity to look forward beyond just the next couple of years, to say what is possible? If we took this away from being a salmon plan and it became an aquaculture vision, or it became an oceans vision where we could partner with people in research and people that have got this innovation and capacity to look at what is possible. Say we partner with seaweed, say we look at renewable energies in our operations on the water, that we partner with people like the Blue Economy CRC, what then is possible? But no, this government has a 10-year industry constraint plan. But Tasmanian Labor would love to work with industry to say what's possible into the future for generations in new and interesting ways. What are the innovations that we could continue to support as they have over the last 30 and 40 years to continue to put Tasmania on the map? So, the government comes in. They reckon, they are big backers of this industry. They say they don't want to make hasty decisions. They say they don't want to shut the industry down. But every step that they take is a step towards creating more uncertainty and lowering confidence in the industry that has done so much for Tasmania. Now, in my contribution this afternoon, I want to go over and positively switch into a very positive frame now and go over the great things that the salmon industry do for Tasmania and have a focus, yes, on the West Coast and the challenges that are there at the moment for industry, whether it be challenges about certainty, whether it be challenges about operational future, but also about the challenges around mental health and around wellness and around community connection and support for each other over there, because there are massive things happening on the West Coast at the moment. But I don't think, to paint a full picture, it needs to just focus on the West Coast, because I know we've got the Environment Minister in the room, a government say they support industry, but there's a decision to close flow-through hatcheries in Tasmania. Yeah. So in my patch of the woods up in the northeast, I visited 2 flow-through hatcheries, Bridport and Springfield. Great businesses that employ great locations, that employ locals, that are doing great things, that have not had adverse findings found about them in the way that they operate in their waterways, that are creating great local jobs and are a really critical part about the whole life cycle of fish in Tasmania. Yet the government takes what seems to be the easy option, and the member that brought this motion up says, you know, I don't want to continue to support or encourage or create an environment where there are, we listen to the protest groups, but this government responds to that. This government says we're going to close the flow-through hatcheries because some people don't like it. But where is this government when you ask them to demonstrate their commitment to science and data? I've written to the Environment Minister. I've asked questions upstairs in the upper house, through the upper house members, around the science and data of such decisions, and the answers never come back with any detail. Now, the people that have those jobs, and in fact the hatchery at Bridport can be said to be one of the birthplaces of aquaculture in Tasmania. It was one of the first hatcheries in Tasmania. And then you say, not relevant anymore, and in fact, you know, it's just a small operation up in the northeast. It's not really in the target focus area of aquaculture, so if we sacrifice that, maybe it doesn't matter. It matters to the people in Bridport. It matters to the people in Springfield. There's the northeast. There's actually Deputy Speaker in our heartland, in the Tamar Valley, at Rowella. Petuna have great operations there. I've been and visited the operations there and seen what people are doing in the Tamar River. We've got operations all across the state. The Federal Minister came down and visited Oakhampton Bay to see what's happening with the salmon industry in Oakhampton Bay, and also to see how there's some great innovative co-locations and partnerships happening between people that are researching in seaweed and the salmon industry. Yeah. If you go further south, we've had the opportunity to go out and have a look at Storm Bay and the potentials there. Now, this government talk about not wanting to shut down the industry. Well, how about you are passionately and actively and energetically supporting the growth opportunities, the expansion opportunities for the salmon industry in Storm Bay? We know that the potential for private investment and for jobs in Tasmania through the salmon industry doing what they do so well within the frameworks that exist in Tasmania, there are great opportunities there. But this government want to continue to sidestep and duck for and not actually seek to work with industry to see how that can be done in a positive way, but they want to try and play politics in the chamber. Now, I can tell you that the people that we've met, whether it be in the Huon Valley, whether it be on Storm Bay, whether it be at Oakhampton Bay, whether it be up in the northeast, whether it be in lots of other locations at East Devonport, at the processing plants, before we've even got to Macquarie Harbour, there are people right across Tasmania working in this industry that are looking to government to provide certainty for themselves and their families. Leadership. There are people in Tasmania in this industry that are just craving the leadership of this government, that the government don't know how to deliver. You talk about leadership, and in fact I'm interested because I didn't know this statistic before the member spoke, but the member actually just revealed to me for the first time that this Tasmanian government have been researching the skate at the West Coast since 2014, so nearly 10 years. I do want to spend a little bit of time focused on the West Coast because right now, and I can tell that it's the focus actually of the member's motion this afternoon, but I want to talk a little bit about some concerns, and I'm going to go back into a bit of a negative frame here, concerns about the way this government are treating industry on the West Coast. Because it's all very easy to point the finger and say, you know, the federal minister should do this and the federal minister should do that. But the reality is that this government have just revealed that they've been working on, around and understanding the skate since 2014. We know that the salmon industry, in fact, have been interested in the skate for a really long time, and it was their interest, their research and their investments that actually caused to bring attention to the Maugean skate in Macquarie Harbour. And as a result of that work and that commitment to the environment that they work in, there is now more work being done to secure the future of the skate. But the member mentioned 2014. The member also mentioned not making decisions in haste, and I've interpreted that as saying, an industry would love to not have surprises. Well, perhaps one of the most significant surprises that happened to industry recently was back in September when there was a report that was tabled doing an assessment of the skate, and industry were not aware that it was coming. But government was aware, because government were actually party to the process. There is an acknowledgement in the back of the report around the conservation advice for Maugean skate that says, "We acknowledge and thank the contributions of the Tasmanian Department of Natural Resources and Environment and IMAS for their contributions to this report." If this government cared for this industry, they would have put the dots together. They would have joined the dots and said, there's all this work going on, there's all these concerns, there's things happening around the West Coast. How about we see what we can do proactively as a government? I don't know if this government know how to be proactive, but how about we take steps from 2014 to now to say, what are the contributions and what are the challenges here, and what can we do about investing in and backing in our greatest primary industry, Australia's greatest seafood industry? But no, they left it to a surprise. So industry had to respond, and it seems that even today, I'm not sure if there was a mention, I don't know if anyone else recollect hearing it, whether there are any other comments about Macquarie Harbour and the Maugean skate outside references to the salmon industry. And I can tell you that there are multiple concerns in Macquarie Harbour about impacts on the Maugean skate, but to date it seems that the salmon industry, the ones that have put their money where their mouth is, backed in themselves to say, you know what, we've got capacity because we're a positive and strong and financially responsible industry. We've got capacity with technology and with our capabilities to actually support and do something about this. And so they're trialling the mechanical oxygenation, something that's been used successfully around the country and the world, and they have hard-end committed in upfront to do this with money and investment, and hopefully by December we'll be able to see some work on the ground in the water with this mechanical oxygenation. However, the member failed to share information around a shared responsibility in Macquarie Harbour. Now, this report in itself talks about the mechanical environmental remediation, the oxygenation, but it also talks about other risks that are recognised. And these are risks that this state government are responsible for and could actually take action on and be, the Deputy Leader of Labor talked about leaders in this space. This government, if they were really committed, could be leaders. They could be leaders in the area of the metal pollution and sediment contamination from upstream historical mining operations. Now, where's the government on that? What investments are they making on that? Where are they recognising and accepting responsibility for those major consequences in the risks of Macquarie Harbour? Where are they working on the hydroelectric damming issues that have altered the flow of the King and the Gordon River? These risks are identified. These are things that this state government have direct responsibility and capacity to influence and act on without just putting emotion on the table, and by doing so associating the salmon industry and the impacts of the Maugean skate and saying, we're going to play politics here and say Tasmanian Labor need to support this because we're calling out for the federal minister. Well, I can tell you that the federal minister will do legally what she needs to do to consider all inputs into a decision and will not act unilaterally. She's legally required to consider all inputs. And so Tasmanian Labor, as as uninspired as it is by the member that has presented this position today, will be supporting this motion because we support the industry. We support the Tasmanian salmon industry, and we will be the people that, when we make government, will work with industry to support their futures, to support the continued innovation, and to support not just the 3 industries that work in Tasmania, but the associated industries that also benefit from that. And whether it be transport, whether that be feed. I know earlier today our Shadow Treasurer talked about scredding and biomar. We have significant additional industries in Tasmania that are a critical part of the salmon industry here, that are here and also innovating for others all across the world, and that are here because of our industry and have located in Tasmania, where we get the economic benefits, where we get the job benefits, and they provide services not only to the Southern Ocean and to Southeast Asia and to countries around this area, but also across the world. For us to have the capacity, the research, the science, the investment, and there has been a lot of investment at scredding and biomar here in Tasmania, is something that we should be singing from the rooftops and proud about. It's something that the member could have contributed in his contribution. These are people that love Tasmania and love what they do, and they love their work with the industry, and they are lifting the capacity of the Tasmanian community in terms of the contributions they make financially, the intelligent contributions that they make, the capacity to raise innovation and lead the world from right here in little old Tassie. There's also, whether it be the transport industry, De Bruins, an incredible Tasmanian company that move resources of this industry right across Tasmania safely and proudly. You see when people are on the road, you see the trucks with the banners saying that they are moving premium product across Tasmania. Whether it be the metal fabricators, the plastic fabricators, whether it be all of the different pieces that are part of the puzzle in Tasmania for the salmon industry, there are many people that rely on and are proud of the work that they do. Tasmanian Labor recently went over to the West Coast. When the concerns were heightened around the Maugean skate, we said, you know what, we're going to go over and visit. And the member for Franklin and myself got in the car, made a roundabout detour on the way to a different meeting, a roundabout detour. We were going to Smithton, we ended up in Strawn. But we went over because we wanted to see firsthand.
Not even nearly.
It was pretty close. It was pretty close. Because we wanted to see firsthand, so committed, we wanted to see firsthand and meet with the workers to understand the scale of Macquarie Harbour, to understand the operations that happen there. And that's one of the things that Tasmanian Labor do. We get out and we meet with industry, we meet with people, we meet with workers. And as I said, just in the people that are in the room here today, we've visited every corner of Tasmania to every type of operation in this industry to understand how it works and why it works, so that we can fully be informed when we invest and support this industry. So we went across to the West Coast. We met Steve-O, who took us out on the water. Legend. We met workers on land and on water, and we went out on what potentially was going to be the most terrifying day on the water. It was a pretty wild and windy day getting over to the West Coast, but in fact, for the 3 hours that we were there, the skies opened up and the sun shone down, and we had the most magnificent experience on Macquarie Harbour. Because for people who are listening or reading Hansard or are finding out more about the salmon industry, Macquarie Harbour is this most vast body of water. Macquarie Harbour, when you go down to visit these farms, what did I say? I might have said the wrong thing.
No, it was poured with rain on the way back. But
for the 3 hours we were there, this is, the tourism operators on the West Coast need a hand as well, right? So for the 3 hours we were there, the sun opened up and we had a glorious day. But what I'm trying to say is that sometimes people talk about the scale and the vastness of the salmon industry. I talk about it in terms of scale of financial contribution, of investment, of workers, of the support that it provides to all the ancillary industries in Tasmania. But if you talk about physical scale, if you talk about the actual size of the pens on the water, if you talk about the collective, if you put all the pens together, if you put all the operations together and you pinpoint pinpointed it on a map, it's actually hard to see where those pinpoints are. If you compare it to other industries and other resource industries in Tasmania, the physical footprint and scale of the industry is quite vast and fantastic because they make a great contribution. But when you go out on Macquarie Harbour and you're looking for the pens in advance of arrival, you come across them, and the different companies work together. All three companies are represented in Macquarie Harbour. And you come across their operations, which, dance quite delicately on the water. And it's great to go in and around the farms and see the scale of the operations, and also see the technology operations, whether it be a feeding barge, whether it be the cage that protects the workers on the site, whether it be the boats that move people around to clean the nets or to get workers on and off the site. Actually, the physical impact and the physical footprint of the salmon industry is almost minuscule as a description compared to the vastness of the spaces and also the wildness of the spaces that they operate in. I can remember when we went down to visit Storm Bay one day.
Allow a little bit of time for the Greens to make
25 minutes to go.
I can remember that the scale of... I've just been interrupted, so I've got to find my thoughts again. But what I'm talking about is the vastness, but also the wildness of the spaces, and that's why what happens in the salmon industry has such potential with, say, energy production. And I was going to say, before I was interrupted, that when we were at Storm Bay, I can remember them talking about 14-metre waves. So we have workers and we have infrastructure, whether it be in Macquarie Harbour, whether it be in Okehampton Bay, whether it be in Storm Bay, that has to actually stand up to the environments that they work in. And that's one of the things that I'm really proud of, that over the years, when we were visiting a site recently, someone explained, this is an industry that it's been so successful, it sounds like it's been around in Tasmania forever. We're talking about 30 or 40 years of innovation in Tasmania. But someone was describing that originally when they fed fish, they would actually have wheelbarrows full of feed that they would be bucketing out by hand into the pens. But the technology and the improvements are such that over this short period of time, one of our greatest success stories, we've gone from hand feeding fish on the ocean, having wheelbarrows around the fish pens that you bucketed out to the fish, to fish feeders sitting like gamers in the top of high-rise buildings in Hobart CBD, being able to use AI in their technologies to assess the feed that goes into the pens with absolute discretion, to say that the AI in these feeding programs can actually fix themselves to the behaviours of each fish in each pen. So they know the difference between the fish in each pen, how they feed, when they feed, how they move together, so they can feed specifically to each pen, to each fish in the pen, and stop the feed when the fish have had enough, or stop the feed when the feed is falling through to the individual pellet. Yep. The technology, the AI, the programming, and that this can be done, so wheelbarrows and buckets, 30 years forward, we've got AI and computer technology feeding fish in other parts of Australia and all around Tasmania. That's incredible. That is the most inspired. I'm inspired by this industry, not inspired so much by the previous contribution, but that's so inspiring, and that there are opportunities for Tasmanians to have jobs on the water, in high vis, in associated industries, in science, in technology, from right here in Tasmania, and take that to Aquanor and other places and demonstrate what's possible here. That's great for trade, it's great for tourism, it's great for education, it's great for all sorts of things in Tasmania. And as a result of that and the breadth of jobs that are available, we know there's a lot of statistics reeled off, and statistics are important, maybe sometimes boring, but actually really important. We know that the jobs on average provided by the salmon industry in regional Tasmania are much greater than the average of the other jobs paid in those areas. And so they're providing the resources really to continue these regional communities to continue to prosper by ensuring that they're spending money in the local town, at the local medical centre, at the local shops, but they're also got families in those areas, and they're going to the local school, in the local sporting club. Maybe a partner is working in the local hospital or in the local bakery. I will wrap up because I would like others to have an opportunity to make a contribution here this afternoon. What's really important to reinforce and summarise around this motion this afternoon, the government attempted to play a game with Labor. The government attempted to say Labor's not much of a supporter of the Tasmanian salmon industry, so we'll put a motion on the books and see what we can do. It was either that or it might have been someone in the industry saying, you know, guys, you don't actually stand up much for us, so how about you have a crack? How about you have a go?
Nothing.
With the risk of the government not responding, then maybe there would have been some negative commentary publicly about this government's inability to honestly back in this government. This government have put on a moratorium overnight. They raised a tax overnight. They are seeking to close down facilities that have not had negative determinations made against them. This government do not know how to support and continue to see an industry thrive. Clearly they don't, because all they're doing here is trying to constrain. A 10-year plan for an industry that has got a 50 and 100-year future in Tasmania is just a demonstration of how much they don't get the potential and the capacity. This industry needs a government that's going to stand with them, that is going to support them, get out of the way when they need to, but support them with the investments of doing the things that they want to be done so Tasmanians can benefit. This is all about, we've talked about a lot about workers and jobs, but it's also about people across the world can benefit. This is a whole new contribution that the salmon industry make, is that when access to protein is challenged, when access to food is challenged, when access to opportunities across the world to be provided for from Tassie grown salmon, feeding Tasmanians, feeding Australians, feeding places beyond that, for what is, we haven't even talked about the fact that it's such a low carbon footprint protein to be delivered in Tasmania to people of Australia. That is also something that we should be proud of. The oxygenation activities of this industry in Macquarie Harbour are going to demonstrate another way that this industry is positive and contributing to the people of Tasmania. So Tasmanian Labor absolutely back in this motion this afternoon. Tasmanian Labor absolutely back in the salmon industry in Tasmania. We love the people that work in the industry. We love the people that lead the industry. We love the people that birthed this industry, Tasmanians, private businesses in Tasmania that said, you know, we're going to have a go at this. And look what they achieved in such a short period of time. We love that this industry has a future that will continue to support Tasmania across primary industries, across tourism, across regional development, and we know that with the right government backing them in, supporting them, seeing a big vision for them to partner, to see an aquaculture strategy, an integration oceans management strategy that they can be part of with places like IMAS, with places like the Blue Economy CRC, to have an ambition about what can be done and what can be demonstrated to other Tasmanians about an industry that actually provides so much for so many different people in Tasmania. This government's attempt to stand up and demonstrate their support for industry by trying to have a crack at Labor is really quite immature and pathetic. But what has happened this afternoon...
A quick word.
So, but what has happened this afternoon is Tasmanian Labor have had the opportunity...
She hasn't come on.
I've got 7 minutes to go.
Yeah, well, aren't you going to give someone else a chance to speak?
What?
Excuse me.
Well, honestly...
What are you doing standing up?
The other members, please, resume your seats. I'm sure.
Rude.
So what has happened as a result of this afternoon is that we have had a platform with an opportunity for Tasmanian Labor to back in and demonstrate our commitment to these great people, to demonstrate the way we will back in this industry, that demonstrate the way that we care for and are concerned for the mental health and the well-being of the communities on the West Coast right now that are not being backed in this by government. This government could do so more. They could be honest about the impacts and demonstrate what action they will take around hydro, around mining, around forestry that make contributions to the Macquarie Harbour environment. So instead of trying to play politics, how about this government actually do what is right by one of our most important industries, take the time, go and visit, understand what an industry actually needs. Stop with things like the salmon tax. Don't do things like you did with the moratorium. Don't close down parts of the operations that have not had negative findings around them, and do what you actually say you do if you have the capacity to do it, and stand up and genuinely and passionately believe in this industry and communicate that to the people in a way that they can believe you, because right now they have a lack of confidence, they have a lack of certainty, and that is actually constraining investment opportunities in Tasmania.
The Greens haven't had a speaker. The government's already had a speaker on this. Well, keep the Greens out of the conversation. You know what we're going to say. We're going to stand up for the environment. You guys are going to trash it.
Mr. Speaker.
Dr. Woodrow.
Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker.
Just run down Macquarie Harbour
Order.
as fast as you can.